You did not find this message by accident. There are billions of videos, millions of voices, and yet, somehow you ended up here. Pause for a moment and notice that, because sometimes coincidence is just a word we use when we don't yet recognize divine orchestration. They say God speaks in silence, but the silence you've been feeling lately, it was never empty. It was filled with subtle signals, with gentle frequencies trying to reach you. The unease, the sleepless nights, the feeling that something is shifting within you. These are not random. They are invitations. They are the sacred knock of the infinite on the door of your awareness. The human brain, this vast cathedral of neurons, is not just a tool for thought. It is a spiritual receiver, built with the same mathematics that govern the stars. It adapts, heals, and transforms. Science calls this neuroplasticity. Faith calls it grace. Every new thought is a doorway, every insight a whisper, and perhaps the voice that you've been waiting to hear has always spoken from within, not through thunder, but through intuition, synchronicity, and sudden understanding. So, if you're seeing this, it means something beyond your logic is already speaking. It means that God is trying to get your attention. If we were created in the image of God, then that image cannot only be flesh, it must also be consciousness, the invisible architecture that allows the universe to observe itself. Look closely at the mind. It is not fixed, not static. It bends, rewires, evolves, and regenerates. It remembers pain, but also learns forgiveness. It breaks and then rebuilds stronger. This constant renewal is not coincidence. It is a reflection of the Creator's own nature. For God, too, is not a frozen being, but a living intelligence that expands through creation itself. When you learn, the neurons in your brain stretch toward each other like hands searching for light. When you love, electrical storms of empathy illuminate the hidden corners of your soul. And when you forgive, pathways once dark and tangled open, letting grace travel freely once again. Your brain was designed this way, not as a machine of repetition, but as a field of infinite possibility. It mirrors the universe, constantly in motion, constantly being reborn. That is why ancient scriptures from every tradition, the Vedas, the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, all speak of renewal. They were not only describing the soul, but also the divine mechanism behind it, the living mind. Transformation, then, is not something we perform to please God. It is how God experiences Himself through us. Each time you grow, each time you rise beyond an old version of yourself, creation expands a little more. So perhaps when the Bible says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind," it's not giving a command. It's revealing a secret, a truth written not in words, but in the very fabric of your neurons. That renewal is the language of God. Imagine your mind as a sacred instrument, a radio woven from light and memory. Its frequency decides what you perceive. When it vibrates with fear, all you hear is static. But when it vibrates with stillness, something extraordinary happens. The signal clears, and the divine begins to hum through you. God does not speak in noise. He speaks in resonance, in the precise rhythm of a heartbeat, in the soft awareness that arises before thought, in that quiet sense that something unseen is guiding you. His messages are not written in words. They're encoded in moments. A song that plays at the exact time you needed it. A person who appears when you've lost hope. An intuition that saves you from harm before you understand why. These are not coincidences. They are transmissions. Your brain, this living network of billions of neurons, is the receiver, and your awareness is the antenna. The more you cultivate peace, gratitude and attention, the more finely tuned you become to the divine wavelength. Prayer, meditation, silence. These are not rituals of superstition. They are acts of calibration. Through them, the noise of the ego fades, and the broadcast becomes clear. Sometimes you will not hear a voice. Sometimes it will be a knowing that has no sound. A movement of the heart that cannot be explained. That is still God not speaking to you, but speaking through you. And so the question isn't, is God talking to me? The real question is, have I learned how to listen? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. These ancient words are not just a verse. They are the formula of creation itself. Everything begins with vibration. Every thought carries a frequency. Every word, a wave. And those waves shape not only the world around you, but the structure of your own mind. Science now reveals what mystics have always known. That language can rewire the brain, altering the pathways through which energy flows. Words of love and truth strengthen connections of peace and trust. Words of hate or despair carve wounds into both the speaker and the listener. When you say, "I am lost," the mind obeys. When you say, "I am guided," heaven listens. Speech, then, is not mere communication. It is creation. Every sentence you speak plants a seed in the garden of your consciousness. Imagine your words as light. When they are pure, they illuminate the path ahead. When they are careless, they cloud the sky of your mind. Each phrase you release into the world is a current that either harmonizes or distorts the divine signal within you. To speak consciously is to remember who you are, a fragment of the same voice that called galaxies into being. The echo of that first word still vibrates in your breath, so choose your words with intention. Let them heal. Let them uplift. Let them bring clarity where confusion hides. Because somewhere within the sacred circuitry of language, God still dwells. The mind may be the instrument, but the heart is the frequency through which it plays. It is the bridge between the visible and the invisible, the translator of heaven's language into feeling. When the heart is heavy, the divine signal fades. When it is calm, the whisper becomes unmistakable. A heart clouded with anger or bitterness cannot reflect the light of God, just as a stormed sea cannot reflect the stars. But when the waters grow still, even the faintest light becomes visible. Your emotional state determines how clearly you can hear the divine. Resentment, fear, guilt. These are frequencies of distortion. They twist the message, bending it until you no longer recognize its source. Peace, gratitude, compassion. These are frequencies of alignment. They tune the receiver to clarity. This is why every sacred tradition teaches emotional discipline, not to suppress the human experience, but to cleanse the instrument through which God speaks. The heart must be open, yet anchored, sensitive yet strong. Only then can love flow through it without resistance. Modern science now proves what the mystics felt. Emotions are electric. They reshape the brain, influence the heartbeat, and radiate measurable energy into the world around you. When you feel love sincerely, the entire body synchronizes into harmony. When you dwell in rage, it falls into chaos. To guard your emotions is to protect the bridge between your soul and the divine. Because God doesn't just speak to the mind. He moves through the heart, in the silence between beats, in the tears that come without reason, in the peace that suddenly fills you after surrender. That's where He is. The mind is not chaos. It is governed by laws as precise as gravity. They are invisible, but they shape your life with the same consistency that holds the stars in orbit. The law of cause and effect. Every thought you allow becomes an action waiting to unfold. Every emotion repeated becomes a pattern that writes your future. Spiritually, This is karma, not punishment but design. What you sow in thought, you harvest in experience. The law of adaptation. The mind becomes what it consumes. Surround yourself with fear, and your neurons wire for defense. Surround yourself with wisdom, and they wire for peace. The Proverbs knew this long before science did. He who walks with the wise grows wise. The law of choice. Free will is not just moral freedom. It is divine technology. You are given the power to redirect your consciousness at any moment. With every decision, you sculpt the architecture of your brain and your destiny. Each time you choose truth over comfort, you expand the space through which light can enter. The law of diversion. When a path closes, it is not failure, it is redirection. The mind, like the divine, never stops finding new routes to purpose. When God blocks a door, He is simply turning you toward the one that leads higher. These laws are not human inventions. They are reflections of the Creator's order written into your biology. To live in harmony with them is to align thought, energy, and faith into a single current of creation. When the mind obeys these laws, life stops feeling random. Synchronicity replaces confusion. Purpose replaces chaos. And what once felt like coincidence begins to look a lot like guidance. Even after all you've been through, even after the nights that broke you and the moments that made you doubt everything, your mind is still capable of renewal. The brain can heal itself. New neurons can grow. New connections can form. New patterns can emerge. Science calls this neurogenesis, but in the language of spirit, it is nothing less than rebirth. Every time you choose love over anger, patience over reaction, forgiveness over bitterness, you're reshaping both your brain and your soul. Each act of compassion sparks a chemical miracle, a pulse of light between neurons that says, you can start again. Each moment of awareness rebuilds the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Forgiveness, then, is not weakness. It is the most advanced form of human evolution. It doesn't erase the past. It transforms it into wisdom. It teaches the brain to create new pathways, free from the echoes of pain. And when you forgive yourself, the soul exhales, the walls around your heart soften, and you remember that the divine never expected perfection, only willingness. The willingness to grow, to begin again, to become light where there once was weight. Neurogenesis is God's signature in the flesh, the physical proof that grace exists, that no matter what you've done, fought, or lost, the possibility of renewal is written into your design. The same intelligence that raised the sun this morning also rises within you, inviting you to be reborn, not someday, but now. Because the miracle isn't that your brain can change, it's that you were designed to. In the vast symphony of existence, science and faith are not enemies. They are instruments playing the same song. Each beat of your heart, each pulse of your brain, each breath you take, all of it is communication. The divine has never stopped speaking. We only forgot how to listen. He doesn't need thunder or visions or miracles. He speaks through alignment, through patterns, through the perfect timing that logic can't explain. He whispers through intuition, through the warmth that fills you when you follow truth, through the peace that settles in when you finally stop, forcing what was never meant to be. Maybe all of life is a conversation between your mind and the infinite. Every challenge a question, every revelation an answer, and perhaps this moment, you watching these words unfold, is not random at all. It's part of that dialogue, a divine reminder that you are seen, heard, and guided. Silence is not absence. It is the language of God. Spoken in frequencies the soul remembers. Even when the mind forgets, when you quiet the noise, when you surrender your need to control, you begin to hear it. the gentle hum of creation moving through you. That is prayer without words. That is faith without proof. That is listening. And if this message found you today, it means the signal reached you. It means heaven is already in conversation with your heart. So before you leave, pause. If something inside you resonated, hold on to it. Like this video, share it with someone who may need to hear the same whisper. And remember, you were never alone in the silence. Because once you learn how to listen, you'll realize that God has been speaking all along.